Hello, everyone. Berit Anderson, COO of Strategic News Service and SNS Conference Corp here today with Mark Anderson, who is the CEO of SNS and the chair of SNS Conference Corp, also the CEO of Pattern Computer, as you can see on his screen. He's just sitting around twiddling his thumbs in his office when he's not recording this vlog, clearly.
Yep.
We are here today to talk a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing with your other company, Pattern Computer.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, we're here to talk about explainable AI. So I'm curious if you could just start us off, tell us a little bit more about what is xAI, as you call it, and why does it matter?
Okay. I'm assuming that most people on this call are not technical, who are watching this video. So I'll break it down to some very simple terms. It's probably fair to say that in the entire world, the most important new computer technology being used, whether you're in markets or whether you're in agriculture, whatever it is computer-based. And not only that, but it's computer-based and it's called AI. And I happen to know from experience that when I say that word AI, almost 100% of the people who say that they are using AI are actually using neural networks or deep neural networks. And we won't go into what that means, but these things have really big problems, even as they become good at predicting stuff. So yes, they can predict well, but they have a problem called the black box problem. I'll give you an example. Google is probably the prime user of AI, meaning neural networks, and they are really good at it. They can predict exactly how many young women between the ages of 12 and 16 will buy red gym shoes on a Friday. They know the answer. Let's say it's 99.9% right. They have no idea how they got the answer. That's an amazing thing. So while they can be very high predictive rates in their work, they literally have no idea what that system did on its own to get to those rates. And the result is you don't learn anything. You make ad money, fine, but you don't learn anything. You know, what's the use of that for science? There is some utility, but let me tell you, if you don't learn anything, you know, if you don't learn the how and the why, you just get the prediction right, it's not very useful. And so this is a gigantic fail on the part of everything that people call AI today, or almost everything. So explainable AI is the opposite of that. It implies that there is a way somehow to do that. And we published a paper a couple months ago on xArchive with 35 co-authors from the national labs saying, if and when someone does this right, what will be the effect on how we learn how to learn? And it was a pretty good paper, I think, to say so myself.
What will be the effect on how we learn how to learn?
It's dramatic. And here's the simplest way to put it. If you're a scientist, you're told that the scientific method is you make up a hunch, a hypothesis, then you test it, and then you go again. Keep doing that. Well, surprise, surprise, if you make up a really stupid hunch, your chances are very low of getting anywhere. And no one really teaches you about how to make up a hunch or a hypothesis. That's the one thing they don't teach at Stanford. So in this case, you don't have to. Pretty interesting. And in doing this work, not only that's really for our system, then when you get to see the results and you learn, oh, let's say as an example, you have a cancer problem and what causes colon cancer. And you could say, here are the top 5 causes worldwide. They're ranked from top to bottom. And here's the mathematical equation that relates them to that type of cancer. And here is the percentages contribution of each of these things. And here, there's so much from this gene, so much from that gene and that gene, so much from heavy drinking, so much from smoking, and so much from a poor diet. And you get that whole thing in one Excel, cell. You can cut and paste it into anything you want. That's explainable.
And that's we skipped we skipped a beat there because you referenced the fact that you have done this, but you have done this.
I skipped that beat.
I think it's important to clarify that the reason you're talking about this so knowledgeably is because Pattern Computer, indeed, as was announced at Future in Review this year, has created explainable AI.
Yes, I did skip that part. Thanks for pointing that out. Now, I will add we have had our own explainable AI using our own homemade proprietary mathematics called New Mathematics by Murray Kenter. And we have 3 different discovery engines that we built, and we built them so that with those engines, not neural networks, we could help our customers and alliance partners with knowing how. So we've been doing that for a couple of years. But we did just announce what you said about 3 weeks ago at Fire, that after 2.5 years of a top secret project run out of a different office, we did it. And
what is it in this?
Big deal. Well, it is a new way for anyone, us, others, to be able to look at neural networks and now understand how they did what they did and why.
Interesting. So not only have you created explainable AI for pattern computing, which you already were using, but you now have an explainable AI that can be applied to anyone's neural networks.
Yes, our understanding from Lawrence Berkeley Labs is it will apply to anyone's mathematics.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. It really, I think it really is fair to say it's been the holy grail of the people in the AI community. And we took a hard, it was a hard thing to commit to, took time and money, almost 3 years, but it was worth it. I'm sure.
And how sure are you that this is true? Like, how have you gotten external validation on this?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So in the program that you're referring to at Fire, one of the people who was there to do that was very interesting, very smart guy who is essentially head of bioinformatics at Berkeley Labs. And I think he's one of the top 3 or 4 people in the DOE, Department of Energy AI committee. And his name is Dr. James Ben Brown. And he was in that program with us. And I had a chance to interview him and ask him, first of all, are you sure no one else has this? He says, no one else has this. And I said, well, therefore, have we gotten it? And he goes, yeah, you got it. And then, of course, our team was there to demonstrate an application of it to a real life problem. Mm-hmm. In that case, it was flight operations in the United States and what causes their delays.
So who do you see using this new discovery?
Everybody. Today, it's like saying, who uses AI today? And once you answer that question, then say, which of that set of people would not benefit by knowing how and why their system was doing what it was doing? Whether you're looking at an autonomous drone in warfare, you want to make sure that it doesn't suddenly shoot the plane next to it, or
the children on the ground instead of.
Yeah, or whether you're looking at why did Deutsche Bank turn down a customer for a loan, which they're required by European law to tell that customer if AI was involved. Can't do it. That's true for all of Europe. Any AI being used in Europe with a customer, they're required to tell that customer if AI made a decision against them, why was that made? And they can't do it. So you just imagine what that covers. So literally
everything.
Yeah.
So how does this, what is the benefit? Like if I'm an average person, how is this going to change kind of how I interact with AI, how I think about AI So
there's an awful lot that's been written about ethics and AI. How can you talk about an ethical AI system if you don't know how it does what it does and why? It's impossible, I think. There are ways to try to check things, but you're always blind checking. You could hope, Amazon had that system, AI system, that was biased. And they found out they had to throw the whole thing away. It was biased. I won't even say why and how, but gender or race or something was. So how do you know if it's not biased now?
Right.
Hey, Amazon. Hey, Jeff. How do you know now that it's not biased?
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a very good way to do that, and I don't believe in quotas. So it's not like, well, it hired 13% of this, race or something. I don't think there's a way to look into that AI system without our help today, and be able to honestly, transparently answer to the government or to you or me, and say, oh yeah, our hiring system is good now.
So, are you seeing a rush of people who want to talk to you about this new system? Are you seeing any kind of pushback from people who don't want to know what's wrong with their system?
The pushback would be passive. I'll tell you a little story. I was talking to some people who used to be at not my favorite bank in Europe, in Germany.
Mhm.
And it's a bank that we had turned down working with for ethical reasons. And I made the comment that I just made to you about this. And I was waiting to see their faces, like, how will they feel?
Right.
Given they both had worked there, would they be excited or what? And what? It was not excitement.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, I don't know if that'll go over. So I suspect that banks, there are a lot of banks or real estate company, whatever, that are doing things that they know are not quite ethical.
Right.
They have no really deep desire to get better because they're making a lot of money doing it the way they're doing it.
Right. I mean, Google comes to mind, right? They fired their head AI researcher.
They did that.
When the AI ethics researcher identified problems with their artificial intelligence system.
You're kind of asking the question, what is the ethical issue involved in firing your ethical issue person? Yeah, so they did that. Yeah. So I'm not sure it's going to be very easy. My guess will be it'll be regulators who are more interested, so you want to believe that people and companies always do the best thing because of their pure hearts, but probably not true for corporations. And my guess would be that it will require enforcement by countries to say you need to, if you're an insurance company, you need to do this. If you're a realtor, you need to do that. If you're a bank, you need to do this. And then they'll have to do it.
Well, it's an interesting position to be in as a company, right? Because you're in a situation where companies are already regulated to use your system. There are no other systems like it in the market that we know of.
Nope.
And therefore, they no longer, in some ways, they don't have an excuse. They no longer have an excuse not to do it.
True. There's another not so government focused idea, which is there are a lot of things like medicine where you probably really want to know. So whether it's what causes cancer or what correlates with cancer, or whether it's autonomous cars not crashing.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of things that would be really good for people that everyone would want to have.
Well, I suggest you start there.
That might be an easier sell, I guess.
Yeah. As your non-official business advisor, that would
Thank you very much.
My approach.
I'll take that to heart.
All right, Mark. Well, thank you so much. You'll be writing more about explainable AI for anyone who's interested in next week's global report. So if you are not already a member of Strategic News Service and you would like to become one, I suggest doing so now. You can do that at stratnews.com, and we'll put the link in the description at the bottom of this video. Thanks so much for your time.
Good idea. Thanks, Berit. Bye-bye.